Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Rupel with Crawford Memorial Hospital, and welcome to the inaugural episode of our brand new podcast, The Checkup. I have with me today our CEO, Doug Florkowski. Welcome to the podcast, Doug.
Thanks for having me, Becky.
So we are excited. So we're here today to talk a little bit about what's in store for CMH for the next year. So on your radar, what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to?
The biggest thing right now is we're all in on our consulting clinic expansion. We have a beautiful consulting clinic, or specialty clinic is probably what it's going to be rebranded to, because people don't understand consulting. They do understand going to see a specialist. So we've learned from that, and we'll rebrand that once we get the facility open. But we've outgrown the facility. It served us well, but when it was built, we really didn't have the idea that specialists or ologists would be wearing a CMH badge and not a tertiary hospital's badge, coming for a day and leaving. That still happens. That's still important in our service lines. But we've grown to the point now that CMH is now looking at employing those specialists, whether it's a urologist or a dermatologist or an oncologist, or insert the blank, you get the picture, that they're employed by us, working for us Monday through Friday, not just I pop in for a day and then I leave and go back to wherever my main practice is. So the existing clinic's not set up like that. Mm-hmm. We need to fix that. One of the drivers of that really has been our partnership with University of Illinois Chicago School of Medicine at Rockford with the RMed program. We've had so many of those third and fourth year medical students cycle through here, and after they rotate, they're like, hey, any chance I could work here? And a lot of them are going on to become specialists. Not all of them go into primary care, which is really great, because that was the idea, was expose them to CMH, teach them about our culture, let them expose it, how we do things, what our medical staff is like, and our community, and hopefully we land one of them. And we've had multiple say, hey, I would be interested in coming back here. Me and the executive team look at each other and like, that's awesome. Where are we going to put them?
Right. Yeah.
So good problem to have.
It's still a problem.
But we got to fix it. And actually, we're ahead of the curve, because the cycles of those kids coming out and finishing up their residency programs, the expansion project will be done by the time that happens. So and then really refiring up some of the service lines that we used to have in the past, that for one reason or another, usually it's we lose a provider because they were coming from a tertiary center, and they pull that person back to fulfill a need in their primary market because we're secondary, and then we're left with a gap. Orthopedics is a great example of having a service line, not having a service line, and then when you lose the service line, you're usually a year to 2 years before you can get that up and going. And what happens? Patients leave. Yeah,
they don't have the services they need there. Yeah.
Exactly. So we always look for ways to eliminate that potential. Ortho is a great way of stabilizing that. We always had all of our eggs in one provider basket. We had one orthopedic surgeon, and when they left, then we were left with a gap. Right. Now we've got multiple orthopedic surgeons, and we partner with a group that we have 24/7 coverage, and we've had people leave, and our community never noticed the difference.
Very seamless.
So we want to do the same thing. We're doing it with urology. We had visiting urologists number of years ago, and then we lost it all. So every patient who needed urology services had to leave and go somewhere else to a different community. And that's not generally what people want. They want care locally. With Cassie Fiscus, we were able to do that with partnering with another group on bringing a urologist in to act as a surgicalist, and that's only growing.
We had the same thing with oncology. I mean, with having Jamie on there now.
Yeah, everybody in the community loved Dr. Vazzaretti, but he was a Carl physician, and they ran into some issues where they had to pull him back, and what happens? Crawford County suffered, and we were without oncology services. So again, we hit the reset button, like, how can we do this on our own? Right. Partner with somebody and bring those services back even better and more accessibility. And Jamie Noblet's a great example of that. Working with Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Ahmed's main clinic is down in Deaconess down in Evansville, and he understands and appreciates the need for rural patients to have access to those types of services, and especially oncology patients. You don't want to be traveling when you're having chemo. No, you feel miserable. I mean, you feel absolutely terrible, and Dr. Ahmed gets that. So it's great to have a specialist of his caliber and to be able to say, hey, you know what, Crawford, I want to partner with you. I want to come up there and work with Jamie, and we can do this together.
Yep.
And the service, we knew this would happen. We didn't know to what extent, but we were 1 day a week service of oncology versus 5 days a week service. Our volumes have tripled, and this is the worst it's going to be. And I tell my board that, I tell our admin team, I tell our leadership, guys, all the great things that we're doing, this is the worst it's going to be.
It's going to get better from here.
100%.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Not that you want to use the term bottom, but this is the worst we're going to be.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. Right now we're at capacity. We're above capacity in the infusion center, just on the short period of time that they've been here. And so that goes into the consulting clinic expansion. Not only having landing spots or clinics for these specialists, but also growing from 4 beds in the infusion suite to 10 to accommodate this growth in not just oncology and chemo, but also infusion services that some of these other specialists like neurology are bringing in to CMH in our community.
So what, in a couple of years or whenever when this whole project is done, what kind of specialist are you hoping would come? Obviously, we want to keep the ones we have, of course, but is there anything you're looking for or hoping that we get? Or are we open to anything? What can people be looking for? I get that question a lot from people.
Sure. And you're part of the community health needs assessment, and we see what the community says, hey, we would really like to have a dermatologist here.
I get that one.
What? So would I. Yeah. But again, before we didn't have any place to put them. We can't put them in a rural health clinic, or we could, but it doesn't financially make sense to do that. But we'll be looking for a dermatologist. I don't know if it's going to be a physician. It may be a mid-level practitioner tied in, like again, partnering with a physician or a group to make that happen. That's on our radar. You look down the line, one of those medical students that came through, he's going to be a urologist in 4 years. He's in his first year of residency. His wife is going to be an emergency medicine physician. They both love it here. Doesn't mean they're going to come here, but we're going to try to get them. Yeah. They would land in that spot. And right now, our urologist, who's the physician, is coming twice a month to do surgical procedures where Cassie's handling the clinic. They would partner, and we'd have more capacity to be able to take care of not just Crawford County, because right now, most of the part we're doing that, but be able to look at the counties that touch us and be able to, we talk about out migration. Well, this would be in migration for patients that aren't necessarily Crawford County residents.
Talk a little bit about, one thing I hear sometimes, especially from older folks, is, well, I don't want to see a nurse, I want to see a doctor. Talk a little bit about why that's maybe a false narrative, or why they don't need to worry about that. Why it's just as good.
Yeah, I mean, patient preferences are patient preferences. I mean, I would say we get more of, I'd want to see a woman versus a man, or a man versus a woman, than I'm not comfortable seeing a nurse practitioner versus a physician, because the way medicine has evolved, I have an extremely high confidence level in nurse practitioners. They're extremely well trained. They're going to take great care of you. If you've never had one take care of you, you're missing out. Yeah. Are they a replacement for physicians? No, they're trained differently, and responsibilities there are different. But as far as, for the most part, especially when you deal with primary care, they're doing a lot of the same things. And the good thing is at CMH, they have great relationships with our physicians. So you're never going to have a nurse practitioner that says, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm going to wait to see what figure out. They're going to call their collaborative physician and say, hey, this is what's going on. I really feel like I need to slide this person over to you to help me with this. That happens here. Patients should expect that, because that is what happens. And not just here. That's the relationship that all nurse practitioners have with their collaborator. So my family sees nurse practitioners. My family sees physicians. The most important thing is making that connection with your provider. And do you meet at the same level from your goals, from your health standpoint, and from a personality standpoint? That's probably more important, because over the years I've done this, and it's been 20 plus years. It's always fascinating to me where I look at a provider, whether it's a nurse practitioner or a physician, and I think, I don't know if I'd go to them. Patients love them. because they got the personality that matches with the patient. I've seen this with specialists. I've seen it with primary care providers. It's very fascinating. A patient thinks they got a great provider if they make that personal connection with them, and vice versa. They may be the smartest person. Went to Mayo, trained in Mayo, Harvard Medical School, comes out, and their personalities don't. But they're the smartest person on the planet. Personalities don't match. They think they got a bad provider, and they don't. It's just not a fit. Right. So I would say it's more important to find the right fit personally and aligning with your goals and how involved you like to be with your health, because that will always work out. People generally don't come out of school as a physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant being incompetent and not intelligent people. Yeah. Boards usually takes care of that. There's usually a foundation there to provide what you need for your health care. It's more also, I think, is more important than just making that connection with them.
We talked a little bit too, or you referred to the RMED program. I think that is such a neat thing that we do. Mm-hmm. Maybe explain that to people who don't know what that is and why that's such a cool thing for our hospital.
Yeah, so University of Illinois College of Medicine, they have what's called a rural medicine track. So they target kids because one of the challenges, rural healthcare was shrinking, and we weren't recruiting providers back to rural. So they specifically said, hey, we want to look at kids that grew up in a rural community, and because they're just as smart, they may have not even had as many opportunities as kid in urban from a high school standpoint, educational standpoint, dual credits, etc. But we've seen that, and this is their data, not mine, they do just as well as the urban kids once they get that chance. So they give them that chance. Recruit the rural kids into medical school, and your hope is that they go back to rural. And they have a high percentage rate that those kids go back. It's a lot easier for me to convince Becky Rupel to come back to Crawford County, who lives in Lawrence County, very similar, than it is to a kid from the south side of Chicago, right, or from New York City, or from Los Angeles, or even Nashville. Much smaller city, but still a city. So we were talking about how can we expose ourselves, because tying into a residency program is very difficult, because they're looking to get those residents high volume patients so they learn the most in a 3-year period of time, minimum 3-year period of time, so they're the best trained. They're reluctant to send them out to rural because they don't think that can happen. And one, that's not true. And we're looking at avenues to make that happen. But we're like, okay, well, how do we tie into medical students? Ones that are like starting clinical rotations to expose them to rural again, because most of the kids that we take here, every hospital is different, but we pretty much told the program, if they aren't from Illinois and they're not from rural, we're not taking them in a rotation. Some people say that's pretty close-minded. They're like, no, it's strategic. Okay. Again, how do I convince a kid from Chicago that he should come here to practice? I'm not saying it's not possible, because it happens, but it's unlikely unless they have a different motive where they're required to go back for like a commitment, fulfillment, or something like that. So UIC was a great partner in that. We made some really great connections up there, and we take third-year medical students, fourth-year medical students for family medicine rotations. We have general surgery rotations. We're hoping to expand that into ortho and also OB in the future. So, and it could be anything. The key is when they're here, you got to have every physician that student potentially could touch has to be a faculty member. So we got to get all our ortho providers on there. We got to get, if it's ED, we got to have all the emergency department physicians on there, because in the end, the students, the M3s, M4s request us a lot. They have a great experience here, great clinical experience. We have great accommodations for them, and they don't always get that at other places. So CMH is separating themselves from the other sites where we're a destination that they want to come to. Mm-hmm. So
distinguishing ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Separating ourselves from the herd.
So we talked a little bit about our expansion here, talked a little bit about our medical staff. We're kind of growing outside of Crawford County, too. I know we're looking at adding a clinic in Newton. So talk a little bit about that. That's specialty care, too, right?
Yeah, it is. You always want to be mindful of those around you. And we're not a predatory health system by any stretch of the imagination. And we want to be friends with those. I don't really have any interest in planting a flag down in Lawrence County or planting a flag over in Vincennes or even Sullivan. Like that's let them take care of their community. But where there's opportunity, where residents of a community aren't necessarily they're out migrating for services, how can we plug in to help fill that gap? And that's really what this is about. Jasper County doesn't have a hospital. They have a couple clinics from other hospitals that are there. But we felt like there was an opportunity there that if we had a clinic, and we do now, we've closed on it. We've got our bids for our renovation. My plant operations director Craig Parrish is all over that. It's going to take us a couple months to get there, but once it's open, instead of people traveling outside of Newton or Jasper County to have to drive somewhere else, bring the services to them. Similar to how CMH started with specialty care, have a satellite clinic, take care of what you can when you're there, and then of course the advantage is we bring them back if they need surgical intervention. We can do that right here in Robinson. This is a work in progress. People are like, well, who's going? And I'm like,
that's what I was going to ask.
We're not sure yet. The good thing about Crawford is, we have a great specialty complement. Most critical access hospitals do not have that. And I think sometimes communities take that for granted, that do have that to complement the care that they need. That's not normal. That's not normal. But we are. So how can we share it with surrounding communities? We're doing that down at Lawrenceville.
Right.
We have OB-GYN services down there. We have orthopedic services down there. In the not so distant future, urology will be down there. So some of those same specialty services that are going to Lawrenceville will also be going to Newton for the Newton Clinic. Urology definitely will be there. We talked about general surgery, that more than likely foot and ankle. Dr. Brissy is our new foot and ankle surgeon. Lawrenceville has their own foot and ankle surgeon, but Jasper County doesn't. And Dr. Brissy is amazing, and his practice is taking off like crazy, and his patients love him. Let's bring them over, slide them over into Jasper, and let those patients be able to take care of right there in their community. Ortho will happen. There's a couple things that got to probably fall into place before that. The consulting clinic expansion is key to that, because right now our foot and ankle surgeon and orthopedic service are sharing a space. We got to get Dr. Brissy into his own space, and then we can recruit another ortho provider, which will happen in the not so distant future. And then once that happens, we'll send the ortho over there as well.
What kind of timeline? Like consulting clinic, I know groundbreaking maybe this summer? No, earlier than that. Initially we were told end of March, but more than likely it's going to be the beginning of April. Design and development is well over a majority of it's done. I mean, we're picking colors right now. Yeah. So right after that, bid documents will be put together and it'll go out for bid. And then there's a brief time period that we review those and we make a decision. And then once we pick a contractor, they're breaking ground. So permits and all that will be in and ready to go before then. How long will it take? When do you think we'll be opening the doors, seeing patients in the new?
It's a two-story building. So it's the first two-story building that we've ever done here at Crawford. I was telling somebody
that earlier today, that this is a big deal for us.
Yeah, and there's still some moving parts to that, because we were looking at, half of the second floor building shell space for future expansion. Right. But as you know, in healthcare, what you build today will cost you 40-50% more tomorrow. And we're cognizant of that. So we're like, why don't we just build clinic space and pod space like we have in the RHC, where we can plug anybody into there? And will it cause some operational problems down the line? Depends on what specialty you're successful at recruiting. If it's derm, probably not. If it was foot and ankle, it may, if your doors are too small or you can't fit a CR, into that room, C-arm into that room. But the new space is going to encompass Dr. Brissy's clinic, and that's already going to be accommodated for. Urology, they have a lot of equipment, but that's already accommodated for. So we've really crossed off the names of ologists. That is a heavy lift as far as equipment and storage space. So we felt safe enough to alternate bid that and take that shell and complete it out, because we're doing it now. It'll be a lot easier and less costly now than it would be 2-3 years from now, which is what we found. Our growth has, been skyrocketing here in the last 4 years, it would be a shame to say a year later, hey guys, we need that space now, and now it's going to cost us 40% more.
Yeah.
And then you're working around existing, oncology will be open down below them, so there's going to be banging and it's going to be loud and all that. So
it's not necessarily what you want in your chemo treatment. Yeah.
No, and it wasn't in the initial plan, but the more we thought about it, we're going to alternate bid it once the contractors come in and say, hey, this is alternate bid, and then we'll go back to the board and say, this is what this is going to cost, and it's going to be a go, no-go situation.
So switching gears just a little bit. So it's January, February. As you look back over 2025, I mean, that was a pretty exciting year for us. We did a lot of things here. What maybe is the one or two things you're most proud of that we accomplished last year?
When you always talk about people, and with the growth that we've experienced, there's been our people have not complained. I mean, we've got super troopers, and I mean, I love this staff in all areas. Not and you can't just say, well, we expanded in oncology, so it's oncology. We expanded in. That's not true. I mean, it's not necessarily true because all those expansions impact radiology. They impact lab. And you can say, well, I'm really proud of the MRI, but without the people, none of that happens. So it's our employees, our leaders, our medical staff, and our board supporting administration's kooky ideas on this awesome journey. But it's our people. Whatever the challenge is, we rally around it, and people don't make excuses. They don't come up with reasons not to do something. They roll up their sleeves and they're like, okay, we got this. Yeah. And because everything starts with an idea, and that those ideas aren't always mine. We've got a great leadership team and an executive team, and collectively we come up with an idea, and then it's got to be molded. The concept's got to be molded, and then ultimately it's got to hit whatever department it's going to hit. But it doesn't usually just impact that department. You ask the lab how many lab requisitions they get from oncology. So it's not just an oncology revenue it hits. How much radiology is generated from oncology, from urology, from foot and ankle, from keep adding these things. And the growth that we've experienced, yes, we've had to add some people, but and for the majority of it, the existing employees have figured it out. And I'm super proud of them because we ask a lot of them, and they just get results.
Yeah.
I mean, they just get results. I'm not always used to that. In every place I've been, in a couple different hospitals, but I think that goes back to our culture. I just had this conversation with a new employee on Tuesday at new employee orientation, and a leader regarding a specialist, and somebody said. The person said, "Well, yeah, you're kind of territorial on things that happen with CMH." I'm like, no. And I said to this leader, I said, take this physician. I'm not going to say who the name is. I said, it's about ownership. It's not about being territorial and this is mine and putting your arm around and say, don't even look at it. It's about owner. We have owners, we don't have renters. Right. And we talk about that when we meet our new employees, like, hey, guys, here's what happens here. This is what is the fabric of CMH, and this is our culture. You need to make sure that you buy into that, and you need to make sure that you're part of that, because we don't have renters here. But that goes back to, with the growth, our employees have owned it. They're like, this is good for our community. This is going to be great for our hospital. This is going to be great job security for me.
That's true.
We got this.
Yep.
And that's probably what I'm most. It's our people. It's always our people. Notice while we're very proud of 5-star rating, it's a rating. It doesn't happen without people. Our housekeepers made that happen. Our nurses made that happen. Our ultrasonographers made that happen. Our new med techs made that happen. Our clinic nurses made that happen. You keep going on and on and on. Our business office. Anybody who wears that badge got us that 5-star rating. It wasn't CMS giving it to us. Our people earned it. So it's always our people. It's not the MRI building, although it's awesome. It's not the 5-star rating, although it's awesome. It's always, and I could have said that year over year, because we went through really tough times, even coming out of COVID. This place took off because of our people, not because of our decision to open back up or our decision to do this or our decision to do that. It was our people saying, we got this. From the board, administration, medical staff, employees. This is not something that ever keeps me up at night.
Yeah. What's something you think the community would be surprised to learn about our hospital? It's a hard question.
Whenever we get our community health needs assessment back, and if you don't know what that is, every 3 years, we survey people in the community, leaders, and just people who live here. What's important to you? You know, what services do we need? What services should we discontinue? I mean, we ask a lot of different questions, and it always probably amazes me what people don't know about us, and that's probably what surprises me is, and it's not ignorance. It's just, and I understand why, because people need healthcare when they need it, and when they don't need it, they don't think about it, or they don't pay attention to it. And I just had this conversation this week with a group of our employees. There's like, well, hey, I'm like, tell me how. Like, we do radio, we do newspaper, we do tons of social media, we have billboards, we have flyers that we mail out to people, we do all this. What else can we do? Because this actually came up in our community health needs assessment. You know, we had, and it wasn't just like one person. We had multiple people going, you know, we really need obstetric services here to be able to deliver babies. Well, this hospital's always been able to do that.
Right.
Now, maybe that person hasn't had a baby yet, or they didn't know that we, you know, I don't know what the reason. But getting our message out and letting people know, hey, we aren't all things to all people, but Crawford has a lot more than most. And you know, the OB, you know, question, you know, or the statement that was made, you know, we're one of 4 critical access hospitals now in the whole state of Illinois, not like our region, the whole state, that we still deliver babies. And not only that, the department is 10 out of 10 in domains from a quality and patient experience perspective. Like, they're the best at it. So you can't go somewhere else and you deliver your baby and have a better experience on outcome and experience. So it's not so what the community what they don't know, because that was the question. It was, how do we get them to know? Or what are most surprises is how many people don't know all that we do here. The answer to that is because they didn't need it yet. Right. We're never, I say never, we probably won't ever be doing brain surgery here, you know, those types of things. I say we're not all things to all people, but being 5-star is a qualitative validation from Medicare and Medicaid. That's from the Centers of Medicare and Centers of Medicaid Services, CMS, that says your outcomes are the best and what your patients think of you are the best. And the best hospitals around us that touch us are as high as only 3. So in healthcare, people say, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. People always say that, but that is proof that that's not true. And again, it goes back to that relationship. If you have a great relationship, insert the blank with Dr. XYZ in town XYZ, great. That's awesome. Good for you. But as a system and as an organization, we get great results for our patients.
Let's talk a little bit about, so we've talked a lot about our growth, and we've talked a lot about how the physical building of the hospital is going to change. So that's going to mean a lot of changes for the hospital. So how do we balance that growth and those addition of those specialties and still staying true to that core value of personal touch and personal care, and that I think has made such a difference for our patients?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you talk about community-centered, I would answer that everything we've done decision-making wise for service lines has been because of the community. We really don't go rogue and say we think the community wants this or we think the community needs this. It's great to know the answer before you ask the question, and everything we do when we're having those discussions, whether it's at the executive team level or the board level or the medical staff level, is seeking that input with the community always in mind. OB is a great example of that, where tertiary centers and hospitals across the country, not just Illinois, have shut that service line down. We knew there was no other place around us for 45 minutes to take that up and take that on, and that patient couldn't be handed off within our community or Crawford County. we've decided and made it a priority that will stay. That's not always the case when you get into tertiary owned critical access hospitals. So it just always, it always goes back to your why. Like, why do we do this? It's not to build another building. It's not to add another service line. It's to take care of our community and to take care of our people and our friends and our neighbors. So when that drives you really don't ever go wrong. What you don't know is 100% impact of it. When you say, I'm going to reopen oncology, are you going to get, and support goes both ways. Like, we can't just support the community and say we're going to open up oncology services and then everybody in the community goes and gets oncology services somewhere else because they think it's better. That goes both ways, and we're dependent on that support from the community. So as long as you're grounded in making those right decisions and listening to your community on what they need and what they want, I don't think you can really go wrong in your decision making. And we've done that here very successfully. And I think that's why we're kind of in the position that we are, because we've always gone back to that question of our why as how it impacts our community.
I think the same thing, we've talked a lot about technology and some of the advancements that we're going to look at adding in the coming years. And I think the same thing too. Yes, you might be using a lot more technology, but it's still a very much a face-to-face and that personal connection. But talk a little bit about what we're going to be adding and how we're making sure that it's still very much a patient-centered kind of way of delivering care. Yeah,
technology is a funny thing because people a lot of people embrace technology that you wouldn't think embrace technology. My mom is very tech-savvy for, her age. Yeah. All things, she's probably more than me. But there's some things that she's like, telehealth. I don't want to be looking at an iPad talking to a provider about whatever it is that you're there for. And then you have other people who are like, telehealth's great. I don't care that it's still a human being. That's on the other side of the iPad. It used to be happy to sing in Springfield. But they're still there to take care of me. And they're going to listen to what my concerns are, and they're going to make recommendations based on that. That's probably one of our most underutilized technology advantage, because it's an advantage bringing these specialists that some of them will never get here. Like infectious disease. We'll never recruit an infectious disease provider probably ever unless one of those RMED kids become one, just because we don't have the volumes for that to be able to sustain that. And even the communities that touch us, they don't have enough for an infectious disease physician. But we can have an infectious disease physician take care of you who lives in Alaska or California or Texas or Tennessee through telehealth. So you're going to get it. It's just not going to be face-to-face. Most underutilized service we have. We have access to almost any urologist that you could ask for through telehealth. But people don't think that way as much as we had hoped. So their technology is capable. It's just a little engine that can't at this point. And it goes to providers also are still trying to embrace that it's a good mechanism for delivery of care along with the patients. But the other thing that technology, the new MRI, and people were like, I don't like going out when it's cold. I don't like going out when it's hot. I'm reluctant to go into a tractor trailer. Even though it produced a great image, it was the perception of right. So and going with Fuji on that the newest, latest, and greatest technology for MRI. I mean, there's all kinds of capabilities we have now that we didn't have before. So we listened, to our physicians, and we listened to the community. The other thing that's on our radar, and it's already in our budget for next year, is robotics. Do we have the volume for robotic surgery? Not necessarily, but it still doesn't mean that we aren't going to bring it to Crawford County, because we've had patients say, hey, I'm going to go to Indy to get my knee done because I want it done robotically. And people, when I've had these conversations with people or patients that are talking about this, they like literally think a robot's going to operate on them. I'm like, no, it's still an orthopedic surgeon that's running the robot, and it's more like a video game type environment, But again, technology's advanced, robotic surgery's advanced, and we need to be there. Otherwise, that person's going to Indy. That person's leaving and driving 45 minutes to an hour to get that procedure done. And not just orthopedics, but general surgery as well. Because from a recruitment and retention standpoint, one, you can increase the shelf life of your existing docs because ergonomically, it's way easier on their bodies being in the module of a Da Vinci robot or a Mako robot versus standing over the top of a patient. Let the robot be the standing over portion because they don't get fatigued, they don't get tired, their back doesn't hurt, their neck doesn't hurt. So from that standpoint, retaining the awesome physicians that we have and extending their career because they can physically because you have that technology.
So when you talk about the robot, like for surgery or whatever, for somebody who has no idea what this looks like, it's kind of, this is probably an overly simplified, but it's kind of like their arms, maybe a little bit for them.
Yeah.
They control it, but it kind of acts as their arms. Or explain it a little bit maybe better than I just did.
It's if you ever seen pictures of laparoscopic procedures, the laparoscope is like this tube that goes in and out, and they control it with finger dexterity and get the scope to do what they want, move, grab, all that. But instead of being up next to the patient manipulating those arms, the robot has those arms built into it. And then the other side is on a laparoscope, you're limited on your field of view based on what the scope is looking at. Well, with a robot, you can go around the organ, behind the organ, under the organ. You can really manipulate it so you get a 4D view, if you will, as you're doing the procedure, and you're sitting next to the patient in the actual module while the robot is over the patient with all the instruments you need, all different surgical instruments are loaded into the robot, and the robot picks it out. Surgeon still controls it. Surgeon still does the cut. Surgeon still does the tie. But the robot acts as their hands, and things can be mapped out on body parts, depending on different types of procedures. So. It's not I can't remember the Jetsons, if you will. A robot comes into rooms like, I'm going to replace your hip. And you lay down, and the robot goes to town, and the surgeon's seeing patients. It's not how it works. It's the same equipment will take care of the same patients depending on the procedure. They'll load different surgical instruments in there depending on what you're having done, whether you're having a colon resection or gallbladder removed or insert the blank. But the surgeon is controlling the robot, the arms.
It's really very cool, though, when you think about it. Just amazing. I think the other technology buzzword we hear so much about, you literally can't turn on your TV or open whatever without AI. And I know we use it a little bit here, like with some of the dictation and that sort of thing. But how do you, where do you see that coming in our future? Or are people freaked out about it? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it depends on... probably the specialty. I know because I had this conversation with a radiologist, and that's probably one that's going to be most impacted because, computer-aided detection, CAD, has been around for a long time. It's been around for 25 years. They've used it for probably the first CAD was in reading breast images, where the computer identifies, hey, look at this problem area. Well, now they have millions and millions and millions and millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of studies where you got a picture. What does the picture say to the human eye? What does the picture say to the computer or AI? And who's right? Traditional radiology, that's probably the biggest opportunity where that may transition sooner than later on just looking at pictures and analyzing pictures. But will it take the place of an interventional radiologist? No.
Yeah, it's just another
where the human aspect still needs to be involved in doing the procedure. Right now, we're probably, I know because being on calls with other critical access hospitals, they're just even starting to do what we've been doing for 2 years now. With the documentation, what it picks up between the interactions with providers and patients, it's remarkable how accurate it is. Still got a little ways to go, but it's really, truly remarkable how accurate it is. Our providers would be very mad at us if we said, hey, we don't have that anymore, because it saves them time. I mean, it's a ton of time savings from a day-to-day, from patient to patient throughout the day. So AI's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I see us using AI in the future on predictive models for our equipment. AI running in the background of our MRI machine or our CT machine saying, hey, you need to look at this caliper because it's fluctuating and it's probably going to go out. Where historically the caliper would go out and our CT would be down for 18 hours and we'd be sending patients out. Now we take it down when we want to, when we know there's a slow time and we can replace the caliper and we never miss a beat. Like you can do that with your heating and cooling systems in hospitals and generator. Like there's all kinds of functionality for AI and where it's applicable. I see us using that more down the line probably. Right now, some of those programs are cost prohibitive. Mm-hmm. Some of them, to be honest with you, probably, I know MRI has some embedded in that already. Mm-hmm. So these manufacturers are incorporating it because it also helps them. Sure. Manage their resources for, techs that repair, this type of equipment. So, I see that expanding considerably. Mm-hmm. Will it ever take the place of human interaction? I don't know. They made a movie called Terminator about it. But healthcare is different. Thank God.
A little bit different. Yeah. I think that's the perfect final thought. Is there anything else that you would want people in our community to know or to think as we go into 2026? It's kind of going to be a little bit of a transformative year for us.
Well, it's a good thing that some people don't know what we have, because I would say don't blink because it's going to change.
Yeah, that's true.
We're always going to be a work in progress, and we're always going to look for that opportunity to say, what can we do here so Grandma Betty doesn't have to drive somewhere to get the same thing done. Our staff is dialed into that. Our leadership's dialed into that. And not only that, and when I was recruiting this general surgeon just 2 months ago, I said, and this was asked actually in the CEO class, if you remember the question, they said, what's one thing you feel like you specialize in? And I clicked on the service slide. We had the list of service slide that you had made up. And I would say all of this, because you don't get to be a 5-star facility if you don't just do something to say, I want to do it. When we do it, we want to be great at it. Mm-hmm. And separate ourselves from everybody else and say, we're not going to give you a reason to go somewhere else. Don't blink. That's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to grow in the next 6 months. And then as opportunities arise, we'll look at those and see if they make sense. We're always going to be a work in progress. We're never going to be satisfied with what we did yesterday. And that's ingrained in pretty much everybody that wears our badge. And like I said, it's people. I'm super proud of that.
Yep.
So,
all right. Thanks so much for your time today, Doug. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.